Hello everyone and welcome back to a tournament I hope you all know very well by now. It is the San Remo tournament of 1930 and we have a game from round 9, Ahues, or rather Karl Ahues, I think I've been mispronouncing it so far, it's Karl Ahues versus world reigning champion Alexander Alekhine. And Alekhine is demolishing everyone. This is round 9, he has 7 wins and only 1 draw, that one that we discussed against Spielmann with the black pieces, where Spielmann basically forced a draw in 20 moves with white, and he's an unstoppable force, or at least he has been so far in the tournament. There are still a couple of more rounds, and some of the more exciting matches are still coming up. But here we have a very interesting game, and we've already seen what Karl can do in his game against Yefim Bogolyubov. He outplayed Bogolyubov with the black pieces, and he was given the brilliancy prize for his game, for that game. So definitely a strong player, and we've discussed that he's not as famous as some of the legendary players of that era, like Alekhine, Rubinstein, Capablanca, Lasker, and so on. Maybe not world champion material, but he is definitely out there. And so far he's played Alekhine once, and I did not know this. I checked this before making this video. He faced Alekhine once in 1927 in Kecskemét, and the game ended in a draw with Alekhine having the white pieces. Now I was very interested in this. Alekhine having white, how does he not win that? I mean, okay, it's possible that Alekhine does not win that, but it definitely got my attention. And then, I had my suspicions on why this was so, and then I couldn't decide whether my suspicions were in the right place or not, because I thought maybe it was the last game of the tournament and a draw was enough for Alekhine to win the game, to win the tournament, and that was exactly the case. But then I checked out the game, and it wasn't your standard Berlin draw like you have today amongst the grandmasters, or some sort of a famous drawing line. It was actually a 30-move game where they definitely did play. Okay, maybe Alekhine could have pushed a little bit harder against the Nimzo Indian defense, but all in all, he's not. Why would he overpush it to get more than a draw if a draw is enough for him to win the tournament? So I'm not saying that Karl was able to draw Alekhine because Alekhine only needed a draw to win the tournament, but I'm also not saying that it did not help. But here he has a chance. He has the white pieces against Alekhine, and it's up to him. It's okay. We've passed the half point of the tournament, but definitely this is your time to shine, against an Alekhine who is in impeccable form. So let's check it out. Karl, with the white pieces, opens with pawn to d4. Like I said, all of the games from the Alekhine, or from the San Remo tournament, mostly from Alekhine, but also from other players. First link in the description below, so you can also check it out if you don't. If you're not following from the beginning. Also maybe check out that game where Bogolyubov was on the receiving end of the Karl Ahues brilliancy. So okay, we have knight to f6 by Alekhine, knight to f3 and pawn, knight to f3 and pawn to b6, going for the Queen's Indian defense type structure, e3 and queen to b7. We have knight b to d2 and pawn to c5, striking in the center right away. Bishop to d3 and now pawn to e6. This setup with the knight on d2 even now bears the name as the Rubinstein variation. And Alekhine mentions in his book that this is also a part of Alekhine's one of Alekhine's games from the book Alekhine's Best Games, and he says that Rubinstein has been using this quite a lot, and that Alekhine definitely has some ideas on how to treat the Rubinstein system. We have pawn to c3, bishop to e7, and now queen to e2, preparing pawn to e4. Alekhine says that okay, Karl does have the white pieces, and he should play more boldly, so to say, with pawn to e4, grabbing more space in the center right away, and then even allow something like c captures, and bishop to e6. Maybe, although it's the best line, maybe Alekhine wouldn't play it as it would be well, simpler to get drawing chances against the top line that is usually played. So here queen to e2, and now Alekhine says, all right, you're not going for the top line, and d5 square is still available. Alekhine plays knight to d5. And it is indeed now, as of move 7, that we have a completely new game. There is one other game from 1985 that reached this position, but at the time this was played, it was a completely new game. So what Alekhine could, instead of knight e5, go pawn to d5 and just play a normal game, but he says, all right, you allowed it, so let's see how you treat this move. And now the point is that if you play pawn to e4 now, then knight to f4 happens, and this is a huge problem for white. You have to play knight f1 to keep an eye on both the bishop and the g2 pawn. Knight captures, you will eliminate the bishop, and now just play pawn to d5, and Alekhine solves all of his problems, maintaining the bishop pair, and this is now well, in Alekhine's hands, even a winning position. On the other hand, if you try to dislodge the knight with pawn to c4, then Alekhine would bring the knight to b4, and after something like bishop to b1, then play pawn to d5. And yes, you can kick away the knight, but Alekhine solves all of his problems. Both of his bishops are developed, and the white cannot claim any opening advantage whatsoever. So after knight d5, d captures on c5. And this is the sort of main idea behind this setup, where white will want to play b3, kick away the knight with c4, put the bishop on b2, and claim this long diagonal for his dark square bishop. And the pawn not being on d4 definitely helps with that, as it would be in your way, so to say. So here b captures on c5, knight to f1. Also, Alekhine thought that maybe the knight comes to c4 as there's no pawn to dislodge the knight, but Karl wants to have the option of playing pawn to c4 to dislodge this a knight from this powerful d5 square. So knight to f1, we have queen to c7, and knight to g3. We have knight to c6, just continuing development, and bishop to d2. So now the bishop will not be developed to b2, but a c4, and then the bishop will come to c3. And Alekhine says, all right, it's time to start pushing pawns. Definitely he's castling queenside, and he doesn't care where Karl castles. Castling queenside will be not as good. Castling kingside will be a little bit better, but Alekhine has the option of advancing the pawns, because as Alekhine says, he does not have pieces in front of the pawns that he wants to push, and Karl does. So that's advantage Alekhine. And he starts with pawn to g5. He said, okay, he was maybe considering pawn to h5, but then pawn to h4 is played, and then you can no longer play pawn to g5. And f5, on the other hand, you just give a target for white to execute pawn to e4. So he decides to go for pawn to g5 first. Pawn to c4, as planned. You know that now that diagonal opened up, the bishop is coming to c3. Knight d to b4 attacks the light square bishop, and now bishop to c3. Alekhine captures with check, queen captures, and now knight to b4, attacking the queen, hoping for bishop captures on b4, but of course he doesn't do it. He goes queen back to e2. Alekhine also says that at the moment of playing pawn to g5, he had this exact position in mind, and what he saw was the following variation. He thought the queen goes back to b1, and then after pawn to f6, inviting knight captures on g5, that would happen. Bishop captures on g2, rook to g1, bishop back to b7, and now, for example, knight captures on h7, castles queenside with an exclamation mark. Knight captures on f6, winning a second pawn, but after rook to h4, Alekhine says that yes, white is up 2 pawns, but black with the active pieces, the active knight, the active rook, the monster bishop on b7. This bishop also with a chance to become very, very strong. The rook easily activated, the queen easily activated. That black definitely has compensation for the sacrificed pawns, and the engine agrees. Engine gives a slight advantage to black here. So after knight to b4, queen to b1, although probably playable, not probably, the top move recommended by the engine, queen to e2, a close second. And Alekhine says, all right, rook to g8, let's just get the rook off of that h8 square, defend our pawn, and now we continue pushing on the king side. We have pawn to a3, chases away the knight, knight back to c6, and now knight to d2. The knight can now come to e4 or b3, all depending on what black plays, and c5 might become a target. We have knight to e5 by Alekhine, and now we have queen to h5. Here, Alekhine thought that the e4 or f3 is probably just best, keep it solid, but as well, he didn't say it, directly, but as I understood it, he says that queen h5 is looking for adventure move. And, okay, looking for adventure against Alekhine, one might find, a most adventurous ideas on the board. So let's check it out. Alekhine plays queenside castles. There are, of course, other moves like knight to d3 check. Why is Carl even allowing this? Well, he's allowing this because he will attack the knight, and then once the knight goes back, he will charge with pawn to f4. That's one idea. Other ideas are, well, after queen to h5, what else do you play? You could play bishop captures on g2, then rook g1, but he says giving two tempi, just, develop white to rook, that's not in the style of Alexander Alekhine. So he just castles queenside, and he says, I'm the one who's attacking here. We have castles kingside, and now Alekhine continues his attack on the king side. Pawn to f5, and now you should... you should stop wasting time. Pawn to b4 and just go after Alekhine's king. But we have queen back to e2, and now Alekhine says, all right, this will simply not do. He plays pawn to h5. And you could play pawn to f4 right away. You could play pawn to g4, pawn to h5 also works. All of the pawn pushes must be played, so it doesn't really matter in which order you do it. And now you could maybe ignore knight captures on h5, but queen captures on h5 is met with g4, and now the queen is just stranded, and that's no way to play chess. So after h5, again, h4 would be devastating, so knight captures on h5, and now Alekhine plays rook to g6. The rook is coming to h6, and then the other rook to h8, and that will be curtains. So here we have pawn to f4. Okay, the knight is hanging, but you do have g captures on f4, knight captures on f4, and now, although the g2 pawn is defended, Alekhine says that it is not possible to maintain this knight on f4. You will either attack it with the knight, or you'll attack it with the bishop, or even if white somehow manages to trade both the knight and the bishop, you will simply trade them and then advance this pawn to e5. So this knight, while an excellent defending piece on f4, it's simply not possible for it to remain there. And we have rook to h6. The problem with a move like rook to g5 is it loses to a tactic. So simply bishop captures on e5, and now knight f3 forks the queen and the rook, and now you have to give up your star sharpshooter. And after bishop captures, queen captures, it's actually white who is now better, as you have problems on the queen side. So after knight captures on f4, rook to h6 is played, and now pawn to h3. Here, again, one of those situations where you do not want to touch any pawns in front of your king. And here, the best move, and when I say best, I'm saying, one that you simply do not find over the board, is the Anderson move, rook a to d1. Point being that after, let's say, rook d to h8, you will play knight to f3 to guard the h2 pawn, and black will, of course, capture. Rook captures on f3, and rook captures on h2, and now you counter with rook to h3. That's how you do it. And now, after rook captures, you will play knight captures with the rook on h2 stranded. Still, it's not a problem. Knight g4, the rook is defended, and, it also comes with a deadly threat. But once you avoid this threat, white should be able to play on. It's still black who's better. Look at white's position, but you will be able to play. So that was the only way to play. Do you see the nasty threat here? It is very nasty. So I'm sure you see it. You guys are incredible players. But rook h1 check. Only move king captures, and then queen to h2 checkmate. There's no... The only defense to that is knight f4. And okay, the game continues, but it is black who's pushing. However, after rook to h6, pawn to h3 was played by Carl, and now Alekhine's position is just objectively winning. So let's see how Alekhine tackles this position. We have rook to g8, bishop captures on e5, otherwise the knight is just coming to g6. You will eliminate the knight from f4, and that's it. So we do get what we discussed. Bishop captures, queen captures, and now knight to f3, attacking the queen, and now just queen to g7. Moving the queen away from e5, and next move e5 is coming. There is no way for you to stop that, so best just prepare for it. We have rook a to d1. Now it's a bit too late to play it, but the other moves aren't gonna suffice either. So here, pawn to e5. it is the move that we've been waiting for. Knight to d5, and now the simple rook captures on h3. But okay, it's still not over. You still have to find either checkmate or some way to win material here. We have queen to d2. You have to keep an eye on the g2 pawn, otherwise it's just checkmate. And now Alekhine just plays bishop captures on d5, where of course queen captures is impossible. C captures on d5, and now pawn to e4, getting rid of the knight. And there's no good way to play this now. The only square available is either knight to e1 or h2, but if you play h2, then queen g3. This looks terrible. And, well, so pawn to d6 was played. And interestingly, this position is winning. You can win this many different ways. But there is one move that allows Alekhine to checkmate his opponent in 8 moves. Alekhine did not find it, as he doesn't have to. And, you know, there's no point in doing that because all of the moves are winning and you're here to win the tournament. But, you know, you guys are comfortable, you know, watching this game that was played almost 100 years ago. I hope you guys are warm also while doing it. Feel free to pause the video and try to find the mate in 8 I'm talking about while I give you a couple of seconds. So, for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop to g5. I'm only kidding. It is queen to h6. This is the move, and we're going to give it a double question mark as it's that strong. And the reason for that is, well, let's say you play some, what can you play? Let's say you play queen d5, threaten some queen a8 action. It's game over right away. Rook to h1 check, king f2, and now rook captures on g2 check. King captures on g2, queen to h3 check, king f2, and now queen captures on f3 check, king e1, and queen captures on e3 is checkmate. So that is the way to do it properly. And if you try something like king to f2, if you want to escape somehow, well, there's a wall here. You're not going anywhere. And here you don't even have to sacrifice anything. A simple bishop at h4 check is enough, and that's it. You don't have you don't have a good move here. For example, you can move the king to e2. Now comes rook to g2 check, and there's nowhere to go. You're gonna have to put the rook on f2. Rook captures king e1, and now rook to h1 check. Knight g1 and rook captures on g1 is checkmate. So either way you play it, that's gonna end in checkmate. So after pawn to d6, that is the way to do it. Alekhine decided to go the other way around. E captures on f3, and now, okay, it is possible maybe Alekhine blunders the game somehow. I mean, you definitely should resign now. Carl played a few more moves. He played rook captures on f3. Alekhine played rook captures on f3 because, as we can see, the g-pawn is still pinned. And now he played d captures on e7, hoping for queen captures on d7. But Alekhine doesn't have to find any, you know, spectacular tactic. He just plays queen captures on e7. He's up a full rook, and so it was in this position on move 33 that Carl Ahues resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So it'd be a great story, you know, facing Alekhine 3 years prior to this event, getting a draw against Alekhine, and now if he defeated Alekhine with white, he would not only have a positive score against Alekhine, but also stop Alekhine's incredible onslaught of the, you know, San Remo tournament of 1930. But that just wasn't the case. Alekhine is, you know, out of the 9 games that he played, he won 8, drew 1, and he is still unstoppable. So like I said, we're gonna have a few more excellent games, a few more big names, like the penultimate round features Alekhine versus Rubinstein, and I'm sure you guys are very, very psyched for that one. But we're gonna have a couple of more games in between those that game. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, if you're not following from the beginning, these are the standings. Alekhine won the tournament in spectacular style, 14 out of 15, ahead of incredible names like Nimzovic, Rubinstein, Bogoljubov, Yates, Ahues, Spielman, Vidmar, Maroci, Tartakover, Kohl, Hans Kmoch. I mean, this is this was one of Alekhine's best tournaments ever. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Frank Banner, Brian Baker, Michael Santos, Ryan Knus, and Isaac Pino Catadao for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.